So today being Magnificent Monday is also, it allows us to do the Platinum Helpline prospecting moment. And I've been thinking about a couple of things. I want you to remember that I said these things to you. You are not your circumstances, ladies and gentlemen. You are not your predicament. You are not your history. You are more than the sum of your parts. And because your value is so unmeasurable, the things that you've gone through is in preparation for the victory that lay yet ahead. And so I want you to know that everything that you want is on the other side of your fear. Everything. Whatever it is. The only thing that keeps you from achieving that success, in whatever respect you consider it, is your fear. That's the giant mountain that separates you from the goal plate, the goal line. That's the giant valley that separates you from the finish line, the winner's circle. That is the only obstacle. But here's what you got to also understand. That mountain is only as large as you permit it to be. If you've ever heard the phrase, don't make a mountain out of a molehill, well, your fear is not a mountain at all. Your fear is less than a grain of sand. It's less than a grain of salt. It's less than one of those ants that you see scurrying across the hot concrete. It's less than that. But in our own mind, we make our fear larger than our ability to achieve. But if heaven says, I've made you in my image, then you've got to understand that image is the image of victory. It's the image of accomplishment. It's the image of achievement. It's the image of championship. And so, therefore, fear, which does not come from your Creator, for heaven has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of a sound mind. That means that you have been given whatever power you need to achieve whatever dream that exists in your mind. And so I need you to recognize that. I need you to understand that when you move, your vibration impacts the day and eternity. You have the power to impact the future to such a degree where you could rewrite eternity. Only you have that. None of the animals in the animal kingdom have that power outside of you. And that's what it means to be made in his image and likeness. Now, Platinum Senior Vice President Darryl Huckabee went over some incredible training last week. And while he was going over this training, I started taking notes because I thought it was just too rich, too thick, too chocolate not to come back and readdress. Some of you guys had some excellent questions about the training, and he was talking about how to get beyond your own self. He just gave us a few steps that I thought were incredible. One of the things he said was expect nothing. Here's why I think that's important. Many of us get so emotionally attached to the yeses. We get so emotionally attached to the no's that when that no becomes concrete, or when that yes becomes a no, it negatively impacts us emotionally, which impacts our production. You cannot get emotionally attached to the yeses or the nos. We've got to get emotionally attached to the process, because the process is what yields the product. The product is Senior Vice President. The product is Platinum. The product is Double Plat. The product is Diamond. But you've got to get good at the process. So fall in love with the process. Become emotionally attached to the process, but don't get emotionally attached to the result. Don't worry about the yeses. Don't worry about the no's. If you plant enough seeds, you'll have a magnificent harvest. So the no's, ladies and gentlemen, are as important as the yeses. And I want you to remember that every one of you are failures, which is why you succeed. You didn't swim across the pool the first time you got in the pool. You didn't ride your bike across the field the first time you rode your bike. But because you failed once, and you failed again, and you failed the third time, each time you failed, it taught your brain what not to do the following time. And because you were unrelenting, now you can swim across the pool and ride across the field. So failure, ladies and gentlemen, is the prelude. It's the prerequisite to success. In fact, the average traditional business owner fails statistically 7 times. So imagine this formula. Fail plus fail plus fail plus fail plus fail plus fail plus fail equals success. But because we've been indoctrinated with formal education, we believe that failing makes us failures. But that's not true in any sense of the imagination. Heaven designed it so that you must fail in order to succeed. Don't forget that. By the time you were 2 years old, you knew what it took to succeed because you watched your parents, and because you watched your parents, you stood up. And you stumbled and fell down and stumbled and fell down and stumbled and crashed and stumbled and bumped your head. But because you did that over and over again, you, at the very tender age of 1, 1.5, 2 years old, you could walk. And you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that you are a victim of your environment. I want you to look this up when you get around to it. It's called a feral child. F as in Frank, E-R-A-L. Feral child is a child that is raised in the wilderness independent of adult human beings. When you go to the internet and you identify feral children, those feral children have emulated utterly their four-legged parents. And so you'll see it's brilliant the way the human mind works. Those children have indoctrinated themselves in how their animal parents live that now it's impossible for them to stand up on 2 legs. And so you are a victim or a product of what you see and or survey around you. So if you've ever heard me say you will become the people you surround yourself with, it's because that's how you were designed. And so if a child that is born to walk on 2 legs, after having been enveloped and raised by animals, can't walk on 2 legs because he or she has observed his or her environment, what makes you think you're going to make $1 million if the people around you don't? It is virtually impossible. And so, my whole point is, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Just support your belief with people who are already there. Don't put too much stock in the yeses or the nos. Get through the numbers. And the faster you go through the numbers, the faster the success will become your own. When I first got started, my senior partner said, build a list of 100 names. I built a list of 200 names. He said, text 10 people a day. I text 25 people a day. I wanted to get through all 200 names in my first 2 weeks so that I could front load my success. And that way, I knew people were going to come in that first week. People would have joined the business in my second week. After I gotten through my list, people would continue to join in week number 3 and week number 4 and week number 5. Do you know that I'm still sponsoring people on my first original list 2.5 years later? But I got through that list as fast as possible. Don't try to build a business slowly. Success loves speed. Now, you could do it quickly and generate a whole lot of excitement, and you know what it feels like when 2 or 3 or 4 people get started. Or you can do it slow, like trying to watch paint dry and sponsor 1 person a month. And it will take a very long time. So my point, ladies and gentlemen, don't get emotionally attached to the yeses or to the nos. Get emotionally attached to the process. Sort faster. I'm moving so fast, I forget about the people I don't call back. And yes, I have a mechanism where I follow up with those people once or twice. But if I don't hear from those people after the second time, I put them on a shelf. And if I never get back, it's okay. There's still 7 billion people on the planet. And so let me add this to this. No matter how great you present or peak or follow up, not everybody's going to move forward. And so having had some experience in sales, I want you to remember this rule. It's called the 30-30-30 rule. 30% of the people will join the business no matter what you say. We call it low-hanging fruit. 30% of the people won't join the business no matter what you say. And the other 30 is waiting to be sold. And so you need the low-hanging fruit, but typically the people who make the difference is the last 30. the 30 who haven't made a decision either way, the 30% who don't know who you are or what 5 links represent, and they're just waiting for someone to tell them about this magnificent opportunity. You, ladies and gentlemen, are the 30%. Those who may not be low-hanging fruit, those who may not be the people who say absolutely, positively, unequivocally no, you're the 30% who have vision. And so those are some of the things that I learned as a result of being in sales. Another thing you got to realize is some of the people who say yes really don't mean yes. Some of them get excited about the emotion. They get excited about the excitement. They've gone with you to the local PVR or to the local BOM. They've gone with you to the regional. They've gone with you to the national. They're super excited. They've never been so excited in all their lives, and they're going to get started, and they're going to make you rich. You ever hear that? I want you to remember this. Sometimes they don't always mean it. Sometimes people who tell you they won't get started, they get started. Sometimes people who tell you they're going to get started won't get started. Sometimes people who get started will do the business. Sometimes people who get started won't do the business. Sometimes the people who make you all kinds of promises, they're going to disappoint you. That's just the nature of the game. All I do is I spend an awful lot of time sorting. I sort for people to get into the business. I sort for people to get through the business. And I work with only those people who deserve my time. And so every now and then, when I have a conversation with one of those people who say they're going to do it and they're standing on the fence, they got one foot out and they got another foot on a banana peel, I give them an opportunity to get off the hook. I don't want people to feel bad if I come around and they haven't lived up to their own expectations based on their own declaration. So I let them off the hook. That way I can at least forge a relationship of a friendly nature, so that leaving the door open for a future opportunity might exist. So I'm happy to say, listen, remember that business opportunity we talked about? Are you serious about getting started, or are you just being polite? That's my way of offering them an olive branch. That way they can get off the hook and save face. Because when people feel like they are letting you down or they're not keeping their own word, they become reclusive and they shut you out. That's one of the reasons why people join the witness protection program. They don't want to let you down. They don't want to say no. So I give them an opportunity to say no. And what that does is it takes that giant thorn out of that relationship and allows me to build a friendly camaraderie moving forward. Because if I leave that door open, at some point they may choose to turn around. Can I tell something to you all? I want you to remember that you're the CEO. You're the chief executive officer of your life. And it's your job to staff your organization. It's not your upline's job to do that. It's not your downline's job to staff your organization. That's your job. This business is absolutely, utterly about you. Now, you get to grow and develop in a team environment, but this is not your upline's business. This is not your downline's business. You should expect everybody to quit. Expect everybody to quit. Everybody to quit. You should expect everybody to quit. The question is, as a CEO, how do you move beyond that? At some point, I'm going to ask permission to teach taprooting, because taprooting gives you complete and utter control of the growth of your business. It allows you to never be held hostage to your downline. But the point I want you to take away from this brief conversation is you have the responsibility to staff your own organization. You have the ability, rather the responsibility, to train your own organization. You have the responsibility to develop your own organization, to coach your own organization. That's your responsibility to answer those difficult questions. It's your responsibility to deal with team politics. You shouldn't be on his side or her side. You should be on the right side. There's always 3 sides to every story: his side, her side, and the truth. It is your job to learn how to deal with difficult personalities. You got to understand that a real CEO in corporate America, he'll spend hundreds of hours interviewing hundreds of people before he finds the best candidates to help his business grow. You got to do the same thing. And even if they join the business, you still got to sort and interview so that you can identify your replacement. The only way you get to the next level is if you identify your replacement. Anybody can build an organization of people, but are you developing an organization of leaders? And a leader, ladies and gentlemen, is not somebody who can sponsor a bunch of people or get a bunch of customers. That's what you call a producer. A leader is somebody who gets good at developing other people to sponsor a bunch of people and to get a bunch of customers. And that's why you have double platinums and diamonds and platinums and senior vice president, because they become good at developing other people so that they might have that success. And so the same way a CEO in corporate America interviews hundreds of people and choosing the best candidates to help his or her business grow, you got to do the same thing. This is legitimate commerce, ladies and gentlemen. This is not smoke and mirrors. This is not a David Copperfield kind of magical prestidigitation. I talked to a handful of people and now I'm going to make $1 million. No, sir. No, ma'am. You are legitimately a CEO and therefore have to assume the responsibilities of a CEO. And CEOs don't get emotionally attached to the results. They keep interviewing until they find the right people to get the job done. Now, I'm going to leave something with you that I think is going to be very impactful. Can you write this down? Can you write this down? I think this is important. You ought to write this down. Write this down. I think it's going to help you get through the day. The no's are the red carpet that lead to the palace, which is made out of yeses. The no's are the red carpet that lead to the palace, which is made out of yeses. Let me repeat that one more time. The no's are the red carpet that lead to the palace, which is made out of yeses. Now, I want you to imagine this. You've got one way in or out of this palace. This palace is surrounded by a moat. A moat is a giant trench filled with water, and in some instances, they put alligators in the water. The only way to get into this palace is to get across the drawbridge. Once the drawbridge is lowered, the red carpet is rolled out, because traditionally, the only people that get in the palace is royalty. They therefore belong in the palace. Now, as you approach the palace with your invitation to go into the palace, I need you to imagine them lowering the drawbridge. And you can hear the clicks of the chain as this magnificently heavy wooden drawbridge gets lowered across this death-infested moat. Now, how bad do you want to get in the palace? Because if you really want to get in the palace, you don't look to the left and to the right. You don't worry about the 50-foot drop into this moat of death where there's alligators who haven't been fed in weeks and they're just looking for a morsel. So hungry they're willing to eat each other. You don't look to the left and the right. You focus on that red carpet. And you recognize that the red carpet are all the no's. Mama said no. Daddy said no. Sister said no. Brother said no. Cousin said no. Big mama said no. Family at the church said no. Friends and family members at work said no. What are you prepared to do to get into the palace? And how bad do you want to get there? Are you willing to endure the no's when you know it's the prerequisite to the yeses, and the yeses finance your future? The yeses make up that dream that's floating around in the back of your head. The yeses are on the other side of your fear, and it allows you to set up a legacy for your children's children so that they never have to want for money. The yeses help you bring mom and dad home from work when you've watched them slave their whole lives and there's no hope of them ever retiring because they just can't afford it. The yeses allow you to send your wife on that honeymoon you've been promising her for the last 10 years but can never get enough coins together to send her. The yeses pay off the house so that your $100,000 investment over 30 years doesn't matriculate to $500,000. The yeses allow you to buy the new car that you've been wanting because every time you turn around, you got to replace the water pump or the radiator or the transmission on the car you've got. The yeses, ladies and gentlemen. The same yes that heaven gave you when you open up your eyes this morning to see a day you've never been promised. You got to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. There's 1,000 reasons you should quit. There's 1,000 reasons you should quit right now. You only need one good reason to get to the finish line. You only need one. I was having a conversation last week with one of my business partners, And I reminded him about this woman that I had seen running a marathon. And you got to understand, when you run a marathon, your body is not designed to run a marathon. So what happens after a certain time, your mechanical functions, your biological functions begin to shut down because of the magnificent amount of punishment that you're putting your body through. A lot of runners call that the wall. Sometimes it happens at mile 15. Sometimes it happens at mile 17. Sometimes it happens at mile 20. Well, this young lady had hit the wall, and her legs wouldn't even function right. She couldn't run in a straight line. But she decided to huff it out anyway. She decided to pound it 1 foot at a time, 1 step at a time. She was holding on for dear life, not to fall to the ground and crash against the asphalt. And so she started walking. Contestant after contestant, competitor after competitor ran right by her. Vroom, vroom, vroom. But she wouldn't give up. She hit that wall so hard, her urethra let go, and her bladder leaked urine all over her. But she kept walking as she watched those competitors fly by her. Vroom, zoom, zoom. People on the sideline giving her Gatorade and giving her water to toss on her shoulders and her back, giving her encouragement so that she wouldn't quit. She went another mile or two, and then her bowels let go. Now, most of us, we would have quit a long time ago. We just couldn't endure the embarrassment of urinating on ourselves. But she went so far as to let her bowels go because she was unrelenting. She was not going to let her history become her future. She was not going to carry that into her future to taint what could be a pristine, picturesque masterpiece painting. She said, every day that I arrive, heaven gives me a brand new canvas and a brand new brush and a million new colors, and I can paint my own reality. And so she put 1 foot in front of the other. Can you see it? Pounding out those last few miles. Boom. Every foot caused magnificent pain to her ankles, to her knees, to her hips, to her back. She said she wouldn't give up no matter what. And she kept pounding it out. And the more she pounded it out, the more encouraged she became. Because she knew that if she simply put 1 foot in front of the other, then the victory would be hers in just a matter of time. She heard her body say no, but she knew that the no's were the red carpet that would lead to the finish line, and she was going to get there. And before too long, that last step, she collapsed across the finish line to become not the winner of the race, but the champion of the day. The question, ladies and gentlemen, is what are you prepared to do about it? Everything you want is on the other side of your fear. Will you let your fear hold you hostage? Will you let your fear keep you from the pedigree that heaven has given to you? Would you let your fear keep you from achieving the victories and the success that you must have in order to encourage the people around you? Or will you live on your knees? And so I'm excited about being on a call with you guys, to get you guys today. I got one final thought to leave with you. The seeds that take root only after you bury them. I want you to imagine this. I want you to picture this in your brain. When you plant a seed in the soil, doesn't matter how precious the seed is, the promise of the seed will never come to pass unless you bury it, unless you plant it in fertile soil. But when you plant it in fertile soil, it is no longer yours. When you plant it in fertile soil, you give it permission to germinate, take root, and become the tree and ultimately the harvest that you will eat from for the rest of your life. But until that seed takes root, until that seed begins to grow into the soil, you'll never see that seed grow above the soil. So don't worry about maybe you're not getting the results that you want. Don't worry about the fact that people are not saying yes to you today. What's going on right now is that you've planted a seed. Let that seed run its course. Let the seed take root. Let those roots grow down into the soil. And once that seed breaks the soil, you know the promise of that seed will yield a magnificent harvest. Even though you may not see anything for a time, that seed is establishing its root system. And only after it does that will it ever become a tree. So don't worry about it, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, you're just a seed. Somebody planted you in rich soil. And our leadership is making sure that soil gets turned over, that soil is tilled, that soil is fertilized. You may not see your glory now. You may not see your magnificence now. You may not see your majesty now. But don't worry, you're taking root. And as long as you don't give up, as long as you don't give in, as long as you don't tap out, as long as you don't quit, as long as you don't roll over, that root is going to continue to grow. And as that root continues to grow, it starts to form the trunk of the tree. And once it starts to form the trunk of the tree supports all things attached to the tree. The trunk of the tree breaks the soil and it reaches for the sky. Are you reaching for the sky? Are you reaching for the sky? I want you to imagine this. They pile mounds of cow manure on top of that seed. The seed realizes it's got to take root in order to reach for the sky. Are you sold out to your dreams? Are you sold out to your goals? Are you sold out to the people who are supporting you? Because if you are, you're taking root. And when you break the soil, you might be compassed about by manure. But manure for the seed is only a catalyst. It's only motivation to get to the sunlight. And so it's going to deal with that manure. It's going to push it out of the way. If it's got to hold its breath, it's going to hold its breath. But because it's convinced, it's convicted, it's persuaded, it's committed, it's going to get through that manure. And once it sees the sunlight, you'll see a tree with unrelenting abandon reach high into the sky. Because at that point, nothing stops it. And you know what happens when you become a tree? You can run a Mack truck into the tree. The tree won't crease. The tree won't fold. The tree won't crack. The tree won't bend. You've got to be a tree as it relates to your dream. And it doesn't matter who you come up against. Everybody respects the power and the majesty of a still tree. And so I'm excited to be on a phone call with you all today. I know that Diamond Senior Vice President Tupac, the chairman of the board, is a tree. I know that Platinum Senior Vice President Darryl Show You Right Huckabee is a tree. I know that Platinum Senior Vice President Thomas the Maestro Felder is a tree. I know it because there were people in our not-too-distant history that tried to persuade them to go somewhere else. And they said, we are going to be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. And we're going to bear a whole lot of fruit for a whole lot of people who believed in us. We will not forsake our integrity. And that's why I continue to push forward. I will be a diamond. You will be a diamond because you too are trees. You keep growing. Don't worry about the strong winds. Don't worry about the lightning and the thunder. You keep growing. Don't worry about the no's, for the no's are the red carpet that lead to the palace, which is made out of yeses. You keep growing. And before too long, when your life is all said and done, the tree that you will have made manifest will create a significant canopy of shade and bear fruit for your generations to come. That will be your legacy, ladies and gentlemen. And so, look, my time is done. I can't wait to meet you all on the beaches of the world. If not at the beach, at the bank. But, oh, boy, let's live this life because we got a whole lot of living to do.